everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Guess what we're working on today? It's orange and it's right behind me. If you recall, some time ago we discovered we had some kind of an oil leak around the right front wheel on our Kubota here. But it was peak snow season and I was using it a lot, so I decided as long as the wheels are still rolling, we'll just keep an eye on the oil level and let her be. But you can see here, it's still leaking. You can see all the oil in the wheel there. So I'm pretty sure I've pinpointed where it's coming from. I'll jack it up and get the wheel off and show you what I found. Now that I've got the wheel off, it's pretty easy to see what we're up against here. The axle seal, as you can see here, is fine. It's not leaking. Where our leak is right here, around the upright or the knuckle. I can't remember what exactly they call it in the manual, but this is the seal that's leaking in here. So we have to replace that seal. The first thing we have to do is drain the oil out of the axle. So there's the drain plug there. I'll pop that out and we'll let her drain. Let's see what comes out. I hope there's actually oil in here. Oh yeah, there we go. So we'll let this thing drain out. Then we'll have to knock the tie rod end off. And then there's 4 bolts behind here and the whole knuckle comes off. Now we'll get the tie rod off. It's pretty easy. Pull the cotter pin out, blast the nut off, and then you just get a good hammer and you whack it right there. Try not to hit this boot. You whack it and that should shock the eye and loosen it up, just like that. And then we'll steer it back to the left to get the tie rod out of the way. Now we need to take these 4 bolts off and this whole thing will come out. First I have to take this little shield off so I can get at the 1 bolt behind there. We've got 3 of the bolts out. The 4th one is cracked and it's just sitting there. I'm not sure what this thing weighs. Probably a lot. And it's pushed over a little shoulder with an O-ring on it and it seems to be stuck on there pretty good. So I'm going to maybe tap on this bolt a little bit. And see, yeah, here she comes. Oh, that's all right. We had to just kind of get in there and wedge it free a little bit. I think it ought to come off now. Let's see. Yep, there we go. And there's the O-ring. I'll buy a new one of those, I guess. Probably only a couple of bucks. Now that we've got it off and on the bench, you can see the back side of it. You can see all the oil that's been streaming down the back of this thing forever and ever and ever. Looks like this thing's been leaking for a while. I guess only recently it got bad enough that I noticed it. So now, to get this thing apart, first we have to get this big snap ring out and pull this bearing and bevel gear out. Then we could take another snap ring off and pull this whole thing off. Let's see. There we go. Hey, and away she goes. Okay, that's a shim. There we go. And then we'll have to get this bearing and gear jiggled out. Give me a sec. Well, I finally got it apart. The manual I have, I'm telling you, is next to useless. But anyway, I mean, it had me taking apart this. That bearing and gear, there's no way in hell that's coming out of there without a big fight. And it turns out I don't even need to take it out. So I just put the shim and the snap ring back in and left it there. What you really have to do is take this off. This is the drive flange, right? or they call it the axle assembly. So we get that off, and then you get in here, you take this snap ring off, which goes in that groove, and then this steering knuckle comes off the spindle. So now what you can see in here, that's the seal we got to change, and you can see it is one ugly mess. I don't know what happened to that seal, but it's euchred. So we'll order one in the morning, and then we can put this thing back together. Man, that seal was really in there. Luckily, the bore is only a little rusty. I'll be able to get that cleaned up before we put the new one in. When I actually looked down there when I went to pull it out, I saw the problem. Even though the seal was kind of wrinkled up and ugly looking, that wasn't really the problem. What the problem was if you look down in there, you could see that the spring had come out from on the lip. So this spring is important. That's what keeps the pressure on the lip to hold it against the wiper. And the spring was out. So that explains why this thing was leaking. And we shouldn't have any trouble at all once we put the new seal in. Our Kubota parts have arrived, so we can go ahead and put our steering knuckle, or they call it a bevel gear case. I don't know what the heck to call this, but anyway, whatever it's called, we can put the damn thing back together. When I was at the dealership and the guy handed me this seal, I said to myself, man, that thing weighs a lot more than the seal I took out. And I was right. It turns out the new seal comes with the wiper as part of it. So we got to get this old wiper off of the spindle here. Well, we got the wiper off, and let me tell you, it was really on there. So I'm not sure. I'm going to think about this for a minute and decide if I'm going to install it all on there first or all in there first. I'm kind of leaning toward putting it on there. We'll figure it out. I ended up using an old bearing race to knock the seal onto there. I will also note that this is a much more substantial seal than what was in there originally. So there must be a supersedence. I guess there was a problem and they improved the seal, and this is the improved version. So what we'll do now is I've greased up where the bearings go, and I've greased this up too. This has got a thick rubber coating on it, so it will just pop into there. And we're gonna lower the bevel gear housing down over this, and we'll probably have to tap it on to get the bearings to go over these registers. We'll see how this works out. If it looks like I'm going to start doing a bunch of swearing, I'll turn it off. Okay, already the problems are starting. You see the steering stops are hitting the vise, which is going to prevent me from doing this the way I'm doing it here. Well, let's try it that way, eh? Okay, then as it goes down, okay, we're all right now. Then once it goes down, there we go. You see there, that shaft now just fell down and engaged the bevel gear in there. Now let me get me a piece of brass. A piece of brass! And see if we could just tap this thing down. Oh yeah, look at that. Right over the seal. Now, it's got to go down just a little bit further till it exposes that groove there, so I can get the snap ring in, but it's hitting the vise. Now we'll know we've got it if we've got this thing in there far enough that I can get this snap ring back in the groove. Look at that, it went right in. So that is good. So that is back together. Now what we need to do is install our shim, because our old shim was kind of banged up. Luckily, there's only two sizes. There's a 0.2 millimeter or a 0.3 millimeter shim, and I was able to measure it up and find that it was in fact the 0.2 millimeter shim that we needed. And that just goes in there like that. And then what we have to do is put a bead of sealant around here and let it skin up for a second. Then we can put the axle housing on. The axle housing has a groove in it for the bead of silicone. So the bead of silicone goes on here, not on there. So what I'm going to do, I'll put the bead of silicone on here, and while it skins up, we'll go install that back on the tractor. All right, now we can get this thing put in. You'll see down the bottom here, there's a dowel pin that stayed in the axle housing, and there's another dowel pin up here which stayed in the knuckle. We've put our new O-ring seal on the back of here, and it's greased up. So this should just go on. We just got to kind of get that, there we go, get the spline engaged, and there, she's home. Now one by one, I'll put some anti-seize on these bolts, and we can pull it in. That wasn't that bad a job, it's just that I've never done it before. And at first I thought taking this off was a mistake, but once I saw the new seal and how it goes on, that was the right way to do it. Way easier to do it on the bench and make sure that everything went together nicely. Now that I know the nuances of that, I wouldn't be too worried about doing that job again. And these will get them snugged up, and the book says torque them 60 to 65. So we'll do that. Now we can get the tie rod end back on. You can feel that seal. It's definitely got some drag to it now. And then I found a tiny problem on the other side. Once we've got this all back together, we'll go fix that. Now the little game of finding the hole for the cotter pin. Get out of here, Stuart. This stupid vacuum. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. As soon as I put that camera on the tripod, it comes around, looking to wreck it. There we go. Perfect. Now we can install our axle shaft assembly. You'll see there's two dowel pins, and we need to engage the ring gear here onto the little pinion. Make sure our shim is still in there. It is. Okie dokie. So there is. Okay, goes like that. There we are. And now we'll just get the bolts started in. And these bolts torque to 40. There, she'll stay there now. So, all right, that's all those bolts torqued. I just went around and double checked them. The last thing we have to do on this side is install the guard for the tie rod and put the wheel on. Oh, we have to fill the thing up with oil too once we're done. Now I've moved over to the left side and you can see our problem here. The boot or the seal for our tie rod end has become discombobulated. It should be snapped into this groove here and held on with this little clip. So we're going to see if we can get that fixed up. Well, I gotta say, that took a little bit of fiddling, but we got it back on. I also noticed that the axle seal on this side is starting to seep a little bit, but it's not at the stage yet where it's leaving puddles or anything. It could stay like that for years and years, so I'm not gonna worry too much about that right now, but if we start seeing puddles on the ground under the left front tire, we'll have a pretty good idea where it's likely coming from. Now it's back on the ground. We're getting the axle filled back up with fluid. So you fill it up right here. This will be on any B series, probably any Kubota tractor, I would guess. Here's your little dipstick. You can see here, it's got kind of a skinny part there. That's your safe zone. So that's what we're aiming for. And there's what we're filling it up with, the good stuff right from the dealer. Well, it seems good now. I got the wheels back on, torqued them up. I took it outside, ran the thing around a little bit, got it warmed up, brought it back in, rechecked the oil level in the axle. It's right spot on, so everything looks good. I'll leave it sit here overnight and make sure our puddle doesn't come back. It looks good so far. And she'll be ready for next winter, because thankfully, I got my fingers crossed. I hope we're at the end of snow season. You never really know around here. Anyway, that'll do it for now. I'm very, very happy that I found that there was an upgraded version of the seal. So that I don't think that's something that's going to be a common occurrence. Although this side looks like it's still got the original type seal in it, but it's, you know, it's dry as a bone. Anyway, we'll worry about that when it happens. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to keep an eye on the axle seal on this side because it looked like it was weeping a bit. But hey, she's all good now. Let's hope she stays good for a while. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. And until then, I want to thank you for tuning in. And this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. So long for now.